Consider this. I happen to glance at a passing vehicle and its license plate reads ARW357. I might think to myself, incredible. Of all the millions of possible license plates in this state, I saw that exact one. But that's a flawed way of thinking, isn't it? After all, I was bound to see some license plate. The probability of encountering any specific combination of letters and numbers is precisely the same. We deceive ourselves constantly with this kind of retroactive reasoning. Now, some individuals gaze at the cosmos and declare, "My goodness, behold its sheer scale." 100 billion galaxies, each likely containing 100 billion stars, and look at all the potential worlds that could harbor life. From this, they deduce that advanced civilizations must be out there. But that isn't quite the scientific method. One must be very deliberate about distinguishing what is actually known from what is merely being conjectured. So, allow me to approach this in a more structured manner. The initial query is whether life exists anywhere else in the universe. To this, I believe the answer is likely affirmative. Why? It comes down to a straightforward observation. Here on our own planet, life appeared relatively soon after the world became hospitable. The chemistry simply fell into place. There is nothing uniquely miraculous about Earth. We possess water, organic compounds, and a source of energy in our sun. These ingredients are ubiquitous throughout the cosmos. Therefore, from a statistical standpoint, if life could begin here, it has likely initiated in a great many other locations. But this is where we must exercise extreme caution because the subsequent question is fundamentally different. Does intelligent life exist? And even more critically, does technologically capable, intelligent life exist? These are not at all the same inquiry. You see, evolution isn't a straight climb up a ladder. It's a mechanism that finds solutions to environmental challenges. On Earth, it required 3.5 billion years for life to journey from simple microbes to human beings. And here's the crucial detail. For the vast majority of that time, very little changed. For most of our planet's history, life consisted solely of single-celled organisms. Multicellular life emerged only in the relatively recent past, perhaps 600 million years ago. Following that, we had fish, then amphibians, then reptiles, and then mammals. It was only within the last few million years that anything resembling what we term intelligence appeared, and the development of intelligence itself was a protracted process. You had primates, then early hominids, and then modern humans. Humans, as a species, have been present for maybe 200,000 years. We have only been engaged in any kind of complex activity for about 10,000 years. And as for a technological civilization, we've had that for perhaps 300 years. 300 years out of 3.5 billion. That represents an astonishingly tiny sliver of time. So while life may be common, intelligent life could be uncommon, and technological intelligent life might be exceptionally so. At this juncture, someone invariably asked me, but what if an alien species is 1 billion years more advanced than we are? And that is the very question I want to explore, because there is something deeply deceptive in how this is typically conceptualized. When you state that something is 1 billion years ahead, what exactly does that imply? Do you mean their evolutionary process began 1 billion years earlier? That's conceivable. Our galaxy is approximately 13 billion years old, while our sun and Earth are only about 4.5 billion. So yes, elsewhere in the galaxy, life could certainly have gotten a start 5 or 6 billion years ago. But here's the difficulty. At what point did they develop intelligence? If their intelligence evolved at a pace similar to our own, and we have no basis to assume it would be faster, then they would have become intelligent only within the last few million years of their history. So even a 5 billion-year-old star system might have hosted intelligent life for only the last million years or so. But let's assume they are 1 billion years ahead technologically. Let's imagine they have surmounted all the challenges of space exploration. They've discovered how to construct vessels that can traverse the immense voids between stars. They've solved the problem of sustaining life on journeys that last for centuries. They've learned to command energy on a scale that we can scarcely conceive. My question is this: what would motivate them to visit us? This is the element that troubles me when people get enthusiastic about UFOs and assert, oh, they must be visitors from an advanced civilization. But consider this from a practical standpoint. If an alien society is sophisticated enough to travel between stars, why would they find us compelling? We are not advanced. From a scientific viewpoint, we are not even particularly interesting. We only began harnessing electricity 3 centuries ago. We only recently learned to split the atom. We just set foot on our own moon. To a being capable of crossing the galaxy, these are minor accomplishments. If I am a biologist who wants to study rudimentary life forms, must I personally travel to their habitat and risk detection? Of course not. I can make my observations from a great distance. I could dispatch a probe. I could monitor their radio transmissions. In fact, if they are a billion years ahead of us, they likely possess technology so advanced that we wouldn't even be able to identify it as technology. We would probably mistake it for a natural occurrence. We could be enveloped by their observational devices and be completely unaware. But the curious thing is, no one can offer a plausible reason for such a visit. This planet has microbes, various plants and animals, and us. The microbes are already present in every corner of the Earth. Why journey across the galaxy to collect bacteria when you could simply send a robot? Now, I'm going to share something else of significance. Let's contemplate what becomes of a civilization that endures for 1 billion years. Ponder that, 1 billion years. Our Earth has only been around for 4 or 5 billion years. The entire universe has existed for only 8 billion. 1 billion years is an immense span of time. Over such time scales, civilizations encounter profound challenges. The first challenge is survival. Any civilization that becomes technologically adept confronts a peril that few people consider with sufficient gravity. As you advance, your capacity for self-annihilation grows. We face this at this very moment with nuclear weapons. We could eradicate our entire civilization in a single afternoon if we are not vigilant. An alien civilization, being far more advanced, would have even greater destructive capabilities at its disposal. They must solve the problem of how to refrain from using that power to destroy themselves. The second challenge is that as a society becomes more advanced, it has a tendency to disperse. They establish colonies on other planets. They venture to other star systems. This means they are no longer a single, cohesive civilization. They become distinct populations. And what happens when you have separate populations? The same thing that has happened on Earth. You get rivalry, you get friction, you get different factions with competing interests. The third challenge is that a civilization that persists for 1 billion years must resolve the issue of stagnation. Do they continue to progress indefinitely, or do they encounter some kind of ceiling? Here's a thought. Could there be a universal boundary to how advanced a civilization can become? My colleague Carl Sagan and I used to discuss this. We didn't arrive at any answers, but the question itself is captivating. Look at it this way. Every civilization, no matter how sophisticated, must function within the laws of physics. And the laws of physics impose constraints on what is achievable. You cannot move faster than the speed of light. You cannot draw more energy from a system than the total energy contained within it. You cannot engineer your way around the principles of thermodynamics. So perhaps there is a point at which civilizations cease to advance because they are pressing against these fundamental constraints. Now, if you consider all of this together, if you think about how difficult it is for intelligent life to emerge, and how difficult it is for a civilization to survive for 1 billion years, and how difficult it is for a civilization to expand across a galaxy, then you are drawn to a rather interesting conclusion. It's possible that we are the only technological civilization in our galaxy at this moment. It's possible we are the only one for thousands of light years in any direction. And this does not make us special. It simply makes us uncommon. You see, there is a tendency in the human psyche to want to feel either utterly insignificant or uniquely important. Some people look at the vastness of the universe and feel diminished. Others observe the silence, no alien visitors, no radio signals, and conclude that perhaps we are alone and that this makes us special. But all of this is merely psychology. The universe has no regard for our feelings about it. The pertinent question is, what does the evidence indicate? And the evidence indicates that we have found no other intelligent life. Not a single radio transmission, not a single spacecraft, not a single message, nothing. And we have been systematically searching for signals from space for only about 60 years. We have been advertising our own presence for about 100 years. This is a negligible amount of time. It is like waking up for 1 minute during a century-long slumber and wondering why no one has yet knocked on your door. But here is the point that I believe is truly crucial. Let me state it plainly. The question of whether advanced alien life exists is genuinely unresolved. We do not know. And I think it is vital to be honest about our lack of knowledge. But at the same time, I believe that many of the assertions people make about aliens are not grounded in rigorous scientific thought. When someone claims, I saw a UFO, my mind doesn't immediately leap to extraterrestrials. I think about the planet Venus. Venus is the most luminous object in the sky at certain times, and it appears to move as the Earth turns. People frequently mistake Venus for a spacecraft. I think about aircraft. I think about meteorological balloons. I think about the optical phenomena that the atmosphere can produce. The question is not whether it's impossible for aliens to be visiting us. The question is, based on our understanding of the universe and the evidence we possess, what is the most probable explanation? And the most probable explanation for the majority of UFO sightings is not alien vessels. Here is a parallel that might be useful. Imagine you are in a supermarket and you hear a peculiar sound coming from the back of the store. You don't instantly conclude that there is a ghost in the dairy aisle. You think, oh, someone probably dropped an item. Perhaps a panel is loose. Maybe a refrigeration unit is making an odd noise. These are far more plausible explanations based on your knowledge of supermarkets and the world. In the same way, when we observe something unexplained in the sky, we should not immediately jump to the conclusion that the universe is filled with tourists. We should consider the mundane explanations first. But none of this implies that I believe advanced civilizations do not exist. I think they very likely do. I think there is probably some civilization out there, somewhere in this immense universe, that is 1 billion years ahead of us technologically. I just don't believe they are paying us a visit, and I don't think we can know very much about them. You see, here is what is so fascinating about intelligence in the cosmos. If a civilization is 1 billion years more advanced than we are, they would be so far beyond our comprehension that we probably couldn't even begin to understand them. Imagine attempting to explain the concept of electricity to a microbe. It cannot be done because the microbe lacks the necessary framework. It lacks sensory organs that can directly perceive electricity. It lacks a nervous system that can interpret that information. Similarly, a civilization 1 billion years ahead may have solved problems that we do not even recognize as problems. They might possess technology so far beyond our own that we would mistake it for magic or a natural process or nothing at all, because we would be incapable of even perceiving it. I once delivered a lecture at Cornell on the topic of how one might communicate with an alien, and I posed the question, how would you teach a Martian the difference between left and right? It seems like a simple query, but the solution involves some very profound physics. You cannot simply show them which is left and which is right because you are separated by a vast distance. You have to describe it using mathematical or physical principles that you both share. And here's what I realized while contemplating that problem. We have no way of knowing if an alien civilization, even if we could establish communication, would value the same things we do. We assume that advanced beings would be preoccupied with science, but perhaps their interest lies in art. Perhaps it lies in music. Perhaps they have solved all the scientific puzzles and now concern themselves only with matters of aesthetics. How could we possibly know? The history of our own planet is filled with encounters between civilizations at different levels of technological development, and these encounters never end well for the less advanced society, the conquistadors and the Aztecs, the Europeans and the indigenous peoples of the Americas. But even in those instances, the technological disparity was minor compared to the chasm that would exist between us and a civilization 1 billion years our senior. And here's another thought. A civilization that endures for 1 billion years would likely be very different from us. Not just technologically, but culturally. They would have different principles, different aspirations, different modes of thought. Try to envision what Earth will be like 1 million years from now. It is already difficult to picture. Now try to imagine 1 billion years. The human beings of that era would be unrecognizable to us. They would think in ways we cannot even fathom. They would care about things we have never even considered. So if there are advanced aliens out there, they are probably not thinking about us at all. They are likely preoccupied with problems we don't even know exist. Now, this brings me back to the initial question. Aliens are 1 billion years ahead. What does that signify? I believe it signifies this. The universe is likely filled with fascinating physics and interesting civilizations, but we are probably alone right now in our particular region of space. It means that attempting to imagine what they are like is, in fact, an exceedingly difficult task. It means that visiting us would be uninteresting for them, even if they could do so with ease. And it means that the most sensible thing for us to do is not to devote all our time to speculating about them and scanning the skies for UFOs. The most sensible thing for us to do is to concentrate on understanding the universe through meticulous observation and experimentation. That is how we learn. And perhaps in the course of that endeavor, we will happen upon evidence of other intelligent life. But we should not anticipate it. We should not rely on it. Let me conclude with something I have always held to be true. The world is filled with captivating subjects for study right here, right now. We have our oceans. We know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the deep sea. We have the human brain, the most complex object we know of in the universe, and we still have very little understanding of how it functions. We have diseases to eradicate. We have energy crises to resolve. We have a planet that we are damaging and that we need to learn to care for. So yes, I believe that advanced civilizations probably exist somewhere out there, but that does not alter our immediate responsibilities. We need to continue learning. We need to continue asking questions. We need to continue observing the universe with curiosity and wonder, but also with an honest acknowledgement of what we know and what we do not. And if somewhere out there, a billion years in the future, one of those advanced civilizations happens upon evidence of our existence, I hope they will be intrigued by what we became. Because the real question isn't, where are they? The real question is, who will we choose to be? And that is something we have the power to decide.